A woman wakes up and can't speak. A man collapses gently in the garden. No warning, no loud thump. A father looks in the mirror and only sees half his face. None of them expected this. None of them were sick the night before. They didn't feel like something was seriously wrong, because that's the terrifying thing about strokes. They don't always start like they do in the movies. They start with a headache that lingers, a burst of fatigue that feels like just a bad night's sleep, or something strange you can't quite explain, like seeing someone's earrings and suddenly forgetting how to describe them. One man said it was like an hourglass emptying slowly. Another saw a dream where a bridge was collapsing, and days later so did his artery. A woman lost her vision for a few minutes in a parking lot and chalked it up to stress. What if your body is whispering right now about a coming storm? Would you recognize it? Would your doctor? You see, we've all been taught to wait for the big signs. Half your face drooping, slurred speech, falling to the floor. But what if the early signs don't scream? What if they whisper and we just never learn to listen? You might not be able to prevent a tornado from forming, but if you see the clouds changing shape, you'd want to get inside, right? This video is that warning sign, because your brain is too precious and your time too valuable to let a stroke catch you off guard. Let's uncover the early clues your body might already be giving you. Let's talk about the top signs and what they really mean before it's too late. Let's start with what many people miss, the subtle signs that come first. They don't always look dramatic. In fact, most of them feel just odd. 1. Sudden weakness or numbness, but not always the whole body. Sometimes it's just a finger that won't grip, or your leg feels heavy when you try to step. Often it's one side, just the right or the left, because your brain controls your body in a crisscross way. The right side of your brain moves the left side of your body, and vice versa. So when something is wrong in the brain, it often shows up on just one side. And it can be something as simple as struggling to hold a coffee cup. Not because it's too hot or too heavy, but because your hand just doesn't listen. 2. Changes in the face. We think of the drooping smile, but sometimes it's even subtler. Your eyelid feels heavier, your eye blinks differently, or the corner of your mouth just doesn't match the other side when you speak. And here's a key question. Has someone you know looked different, but they didn't feel different? That could be their brain misfiring even before they notice. 3. Sudden trouble with balance or coordination. You haven't tripped over that rug in 10 years, but suddenly you lose your step. Or reaching to grab a glass, your hand swerves and the glass tips. It's not clumsiness. It might be the brain's signals not reaching the body in time. 4. Trouble speaking or understanding words, slurred speech of course, but also trouble finding the right word. You want to say keys and you say chairs, or you say nothing because your brain just can't pull the word into focus. And sometimes it's not speaking, but hearing. Someone's talking to you and it sounds like noise. Your ears hear them fine, but your brain isn't translating the words anymore. 5. Sudden changes in vision. This one surprised a lot of people in the comments. Blurry vision in one eye, seeing shadows or bright lights out of nowhere, or what one viewer called old TV screen static, flickering black and white flashes. Here's what's important. These symptoms don't have to last long. Some might fade in minutes. Others may linger for hours and then disappear. And that's the trap. Because when something fades, we think it's over. We think if it was serious, it would have gotten worse. But research says the opposite. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, 12 to 20% of people who experience these mini strokes will go on to have a major stroke within 90 days. And nearly half of those full strokes happen in the first 48 hours. That means if your body sends you a warning, it might be your only chance to act. Why wait for paralysis when a finger twitch or a word jumble is already the signal? Why wait for catastrophe when you can respond to the whisper? Because remember, the body doesn't always shout, but it always speaks. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when these signs show up. Because once you understand how it works, you'll never ignore these early warnings again. Your brain is only about 2% of your body's weight, but it uses over 20% of your body's energy. That's a lot. It means your brain is always on, whether you're reading a book, walking downstairs, or dreaming at night. But this constant work comes with one big requirement: oxygen. And how does oxygen reach the brain? Through blood. So what happens when blood can't get there? That's a stroke. There are three major types, each one dangerous, but each one also giving you a different kind of chance to intervene. First is the ischemic stroke. It's the most common, about 87% of all strokes. This happens when something, like a blood clot, blocks a blood vessel in your brain. Think of it like a traffic jam in the highway of your brain. Blood tries to move through, but it gets stuck, and everything downstream from that blockage gets starved. The longer that tissue goes without blood, without oxygen, the more damage occurs. Just 10 seconds without oxygen can make you lose consciousness. 4 to 6 minutes and brain tissue starts to die, permanently. Second is the hemorrhagic stroke. This is less common but far more deadly. Here, a blood vessel in the brain bursts. The blood doesn't just stop flowing, it spills out into places it shouldn't be, pushing against the brain, damaging tissue. More than half of people with hemorrhagic stroke die within a year. And yet, some of those might have been preventable if the vessel's weakness had been caught earlier. Then there's the transient ischemic attack, or TIA. Some call it a mini stroke, but don't let the word mini fool you. TIAs are serious. They happen when the brain's blood flow gets blocked temporarily, just for a few minutes. But temporary doesn't mean harmless. According to stroke research, about 40% of people who suffer a major stroke had a TIA within the previous week. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern, a signal, a second chance if you listen. And here's the part most people never hear from their doctors. You can look completely normal during a TIA. The symptoms fade. You might smile, walk, speak again. But the clock has started ticking. It's like your body just lit a match in the corner of the house. It hasn't spread yet. But if you ignore the smoke, well, you know how that ends. So if strokes are caused by blocked or broken vessels, the next question is, why do those vessels break or get blocked in the first place? That's where we go deeper, because it's not just about age or luck. It's about something happening inside the body, something invisible but deadly, and that something is insulin resistance. Most people think of stroke as something that just happens out of nowhere, like a bolt of lightning. But the truth is, it's often been building up for years, and one of the biggest culprits hiding in plain sight is insulin resistance. You may have heard the term, maybe your doctor mentioned it, maybe not, but here's why it matters. Insulin resistance is when your body stops responding properly to insulin, the hormone that helps control your blood sugar. And when that happens, your blood sugar stays higher than it should. Your body compensates by pumping out more insulin. That leads to inflammation, blood vessel damage, and fat buildup, especially around organs. It's like pouring sticky syrup into delicate pipes. Eventually something clogs. Eventually something breaks. In strokes, they love broken pipes. Studies show that insulin resistance is not just a blood sugar issue, it's a cardiovascular ticking time bomb. In one large study from China, people with high METS-IR scores, an index of insulin resistance, had nearly double the risk of stroke even if they weren't diagnosed with diabetes yet. Double, that's not a maybe. That's a massive risk increase. So if you've been told you have high blood pressure, prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, belly fat that won't go away, Fatty liver, chronic fatigue, those aren't just separate issues, they're signals. Your body is telling you that the system is struggling, that the vessels in your brain are under stress, that you may be one event away from something irreversible. And here's the kicker. About 88% of adults in the US have some form of metabolic dysfunction. That's almost 9 out of 10 people walking around every day with a silent warning light blinking. But most of them don't know it because they feel fine until they don't. So what can you do? You don't need a dozen pills. You don't need to fear food or obsess over numbers. What you need is a clear, sustainable shift in lifestyle. Here's where you start. 1. Test your blood, not just for sugar, but for insulin. Most doctors only check glucose. Ask for a fasting insulin test and HOMA-IR score. That gives you the full picture. 2. Remove processed carbs and sugar from your diet. Think of bread, pasta, soda, cereals. They spike insulin fast and keep it high. Replace with real food, vegetables, healthy fats, clean proteins. 3. Prioritize movement. You don't need a gym, just walk, daily. Movement makes your cells more responsive to insulin and improves circulation. 4. Improve sleep and reduce stress. Lack of sleep and chronic stress raise cortisol, and that raises blood sugar. Deep sleep is not just rest, it's repair time. 5. Be cautious with medications like birth control and hormone therapy. For some people, they increase clot risk. Talk to your doctor. Get informed. Don't assume. Because here's the truth. Instead of waiting for disaster, you can become the early responder in your own life. Instead of saying, I wish I'd known, you can say, thank God I acted when I did. And if you've already had a TIA, don't wait for a second one. You still have time. As one woman shared, I lost my vision, then it came back. The doctor said it was nothing. A week later, I had a stroke. Let her story become your turning point, not your future. Let today be the day you stop treating symptoms and start healing the cause. So, where does all this leave us? You've just heard stories, real ones, of people who had seconds, minutes, maybe a few days of warning, and some listened, some didn't, and for many that moment changed everything. You might be wondering now, what's my risk? How do I know if my body is trying to tell me something? Start by asking a different question. Don't ask, am I sick? Ask, am I listening? Because your body is always speaking in small ways, with subtle signs, with unusual fatigue, with a headache that feels different, with a moment when your speech fumbles or your fingers miss a button. And while doctors, tests, and diagnoses all matter, what matters more is that you trust yourself enough to notice. Because the truth is, your stroke risk doesn't start when the ambulance comes. It starts years before, when insulin resistance begins, when inflammation builds, when habits take root, and it can also end years before if you choose to make a change. That's why I created resources like the blood work course. Not to scare you, not to sell you, but to help you see clearly what standard tests often miss. Because when you understand what your blood says, you start to understand what your brain needs, what your heart needs, what you need. So if you've ever had symptoms, even small ones, don't shrug them off. If someone you love has had a stroke, share this with them. Don't assume they've heard it all. Because here's what most doctors won't say. Stroke recovery is possible, but stroke prevention, that's powerful. You can reverse insulin resistance. You can strengthen your vessels. You can protect your brain. It's not about fear. It's about freedom. Freedom to live without waiting for disaster. Freedom to wake up tomorrow and feel clear, steady, and safe in your body. And if you've never had a warning sign, even better, because now you know what to watch for. Now you know what to change. And that means now you hold the power. Thank you for watching. If this helped you, make sure to check out the resources below. Take care of your brain and take care of those you love by helping them see what they can't yet feel.